Howdy. You knew this day would eventually come. ZZ Top! Edwin Canestracci here! Yeah! Let me take off my sunglasses. Wait, I know I should keep them on to see what I'm doing. And if you cats have picked up that George Clinton reference, you get a bonus point. But sometimes I don't want to see what I'm doing, so I take them off. Woo! Bright light. It's the afternoon. I'm having a beer. I know I should be drinking an American beer. Oh, I should be drinking a beer from Texas, like Shiner Bock. That's a great beer, by the way. But sometimes your beer you have in your fridge does not line up with the Rank-A-Rama you just decide to do all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Apologies for the imported fucking beer. But, hey, at least I got a ZZ Top t-shirt handy, and I'm wearing a cowboy hat. I feel like that makes up for it. Plus, I own every goddamn ZZ Top album. How many people do you know actually own every ZZ Top album? Not many, I bet. Because not many people are awesome. Because ZZ Top is an awesome band. So that makes you an awesome person if you own all their albums. Just saying. There's a little evidence pointing in my favor. That's all I'm saying. God damn, I love this band. Which obviously I do, because I wouldn't be making a goddamn Rank-A-Rama video for a band I didn't like, let alone love. So, ZZ Top. Hey, we all know ZZ Top. We grew up with all those Eliminator videos and songs. You heard them on the radio. You probably also heard a couple of their 70s classics as well. But I don't know too many people that have really done the deep dive into their albums. Short of Trace Homebrace, I don't know too many people that, know their albums. And by the way, I'm just going to say right now, I'm Italian-American, born in Philly. I mispronounce English words, so I'm going to totally murder all these goddamn Spanish titles that I'm going to be reading. Apologies, I don't mean any disrespect to any cultures, because a lot of this shit, I've just read before, but I haven't, heard people in casual conversations talking ZZ Top albums and song titles. You'd be surprised. That doesn't happen. Doesn't happen too often. And this is the thing. Yeah, there's a thing. Because ZZ Top, I feel like they're a band that people say, hey, I like ZZ Top, and yeah, it's cool, rock and roll, ZZ Top, bluesy, rock guys from Texas with big beards. They like them, but I don't feel they have the best reputation, especially from what I've seen from metalheads and hard rock fans. There's kind of this general consensus that they kind of started to suck after the 70s. They like their 70s shit, but then after the 70s, not so great. Well, I have a very different opinion than that, as you'll find out. In fact, I'll say there's actually nothing on this Rank-A-Rama that I dislike or hate. Obviously, there's going to be an album that I like least, and there's definitely an album I like least, and others I like lesser than others. But for the most part, I think they're a far more consistent band than their reputation. Yeah, I'll just say it now. I think for the most part, their 70s stuff is their best stuff. But you can say that for a lot of bands. Even their poppier stuff in the 80s, I dig it. That's right, I dig Robo ZZ Top. I like it. Do I like it as much as the 70s stuff? Well, you'll see. I guess you already know I don't, because I said I like the 70s stuff best. But I dig their 80s stuff too. And in fact, there's a whole great period, I think, that's after that, after the 70s and after the 80s, that it's totally ignored by people. And it's a crying shame, because it's great stuff. It's a damn shame. And the damn shame is worse than a crying shame. All I can say about my introduction to ZZ Top is I was a child of the 80s and I had MTV. So figure it out. Yeah. So that's how I found out about ZZ Top. I personally, as an adult, did not get into them until I would say probably like the earlier mid 2000s when I started to embrace outlaw country and southern rock. I got into Leonard Skinner, and obviously at some point you're gonna start listening to ZZ Top if you're getting into shit like that. And I always loved bluesy hard rock. Going back to Aerosmith and AC/DC, and I love soulful, bluesy, funky rock and roll music. And ZZ Top is a soulful, bluesy, funky rock and roll band. So yeah, I'm gonna love them. So there you go. And also, of course, I gotta mention it, the sad elephant in the room is that the late and great bassist, Dusty Hill, great bassist, amazing vocalist, passed away this summer. Very tragic. So R.I.P. Dusty. He was awesome. And a very important part of ZZ Top, not just in terms of the dual image, because he also had the long beard along with Billy, that image, the image of Billy and Dusty standing side by side with the guitars and the beard. It's a very powerful image, it sticks in your mind. It's iconic. That's right, the term iconic would be aptly applied to that. And holding down the whole rhythm, him and Frank Beard holding down the rhythm section as Billy's, doing all his amazing guitar work, they're just a trio. So the bassist is even more important when it's a trio because he's really filling out the bottom, the whole sound behind Billy, especially live. But as a vocalist, man, so underrated. And as much as I love Billy Gibbons' vocals, which are really jivey and cool and soulful, I gotta say, I wish Dusty sang more. He had a really strong voice, arguably a stronger voice than Billy. I mean, he could really belt it out, both in terms of hard rock and stuff, and also in terms of like more soul style singing. Like he could do both. He could do like soul style singing, and then over the top, almost like AC/DC Brian Johnson type vocals at times. Like he could really belt it out. And he sang like one of their biggest hits from the 70s, Tush. He was the lead vocalist on that. So I don't know why Dusty didn't sing more. He should have sang more, So that's all I'm saying. Nothing against Billy. Love Billy's vocals. But, man, Dusty, that guy, that brother had pipes on him, man. Amazing vocalist, amazing bassist. And I love Dusty Hill. And I was very sad when he passed away this summer. But, he left a lot of cool music for us, and if you haven't dived into ZZ Top and you haven't listened to a lot of Dusty's great little fucking gems, you need to listen to them, and I'm going to hip you to what some of these songs are, because Dusty's vocals are always like, he's always singing like a lot of my favorite songs. But Billy's also awesome, soulful, jivey, cool voice. They're a great band. It's almost like I'm a ZZ Top fan or something. Whoa! So let's do it. Let's jump into this shit. Come on, life is short. Like I said, I actually like all their albums. So even this album, I don't dislike. But I can safely say it's my least favorite. Oh wait, I should probably put the numbers here. Okay, so what's the numbers? I got two things on my phone. I got the list. Uh-oh. Don't look at that. Don't look at that. No cheating. Let's keep this classy, all right? So it's 15. Yeah, not the most prolific band in the world, considering that they've been playing for 50 years. Yeah, they probably should have more albums. I'll say that. I'll say ZZ Top should have more albums. But maybe if they put out more albums, the quality would have dropped. So, so scratch that. You do use ZZ Top. You do an album every 5 years. Plus, I don't even know if they're going to continue without Dusty. That's a whole other thing. I don't know. All I can tell you is that their last album, La Futura, is my least favorite. That's right. Number 15, La Futura, is my least favorite. So their last album was my least favorite. Not bad. It's all right. This is my issue. Okay. This is why, why it had to be my least favorite. I don't think the songs are that strong for the most part. I like the lead-off single a lot, and I had a cool video. I Gots to Get Paid. That's a great song. I love I Gots to Get Paid. Nice, straight up, jivey ZZ Top song. I dig that. There's also a song that sounds a lot like an AC/DC song, called Flying High. I dig that song. That song's catchy. And, it's not bad. It's good straight up kind of bluesy southern rock for the most part. But, Rick Rubin, hey, I've said this a few times before. He produced this. I'm not a big fan of later day Rick Rubin productions. Love his old shit, like in the 80s, like Danzig's first album. Man, I love the production on that. And Slayer's Rain and Blood. And I even like, I know some people don't like it, but I love the AC/DC's Ball Breaker. I like that dry, kind of gritty sound he created on that album. So I would say from the 80s into like the mid 90s, I was a fan of Rick Rubin's production style. But in the 2000s, man, I just don't dig it. Like everything's too loud, brick walled, and he does this thing with the bands where it's all about going back to basics. Like he wants to just he always wants to dumb down their music and not really recognize their whole career. You know, it's just about, let's take what's most popular about you guys or what's most iconic or whatever and just focus on that. And I'm just not into that approach. I think it's reductive, and I just don't like the sound of the records, his records for the most part. And this is like, you know, it's too loud, and the songs are all kind of basic by ZZ Top standards. It's all right. It's kind of similar to the 3 albums that were before it, but those 3 albums, I think, were all much better. Actually, one thing that Rick Rubin did was he kind of like streamlined them. He kind of takes away the experimental edge of ZZ Top, you know, and the weirdness. Like there's a gonzo weird side to ZZ Top that Rick Rubin kind of stamps out, you know, to make them kind of as streamlined, just straight up Southern rock as possible. And I guess that's why it's my least favorite. I think it's the ZZ Top album that has the least amount of personalities, and I just don't think the songs are the strongest. But I don't hate it. You know, it has those 2 songs I like, and occasionally I'll listen to it, you know, once in a very, very blue moon. But, you know, one of the albums had to be the least, so that's it. So, La Futura is my least favorite ZZ Top album. So now you know. The next album is what I think most people would probably say is their least favorite ZZ Top album. Coming in at number 14, 1985's Afterburner. Yeah, most people say this is their worst album. I think it's their second worst album, or my second least favorite. And you know what? I'm going with second least favorite because I like it. Yeah, I kind of like this album. I know it's cheesy. It's definitely cheesy. It's like eating sour cream and cheddar cheese potato chips while watching Bachelor Party. That's what it's like. It's like that kind of cheesy. And that's fun. You know, nothing wrong with that. It's really obvious what they're doing. It was their attempt to kind of do Eliminator again and go even more so in a poppy direction. And they just, you know, they kind of lost the plot a bit. It's a lesser Eliminator, you know, and you'll find out what I think of Eliminator when we get there. But man, yeah, it's like a dumbed down, less rockin', less memorable Eliminator. So there you go. But, you know, it's fun and it has some of the qualities of Eliminators. And, you know, I like some of these songs. I don't believe in the term guilty pleasure. To me, if you like it, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I like Sleeping Bag. I think that's a catchy song. Yeah, maybe they didn't need the little dancey techno like things at the beginning, this little corny keyboard lines. They don't need that, but it's a catchy song, and I like the video even though it made no sense. It's a catchy song. I like Rough Boy, the other single from it. I think that's a really nice kind of chill, soulful, slick 80s power ballad. I like it. And they give it that kind of ZZ Top flair. Like, you know, it's not like no one else would really do a song like Rough Boy. It's very ZZ Top. And this is the thing, you know, as cheesy and as calculating as this album is, it still there's a lot of personality. Like if you compare it to a lot of other 80s pop from that period, it's still like it's very distinctly ZZ Top. Even if it's this new Eliminator version of ZZ Top, it has a lot of personality. It has a lot of humor and charm. And yeah, it's dumbed down and it's kind of geared towards like MTV watching teenagers, you know, Woke Up with Wood, Velcro Fly, you know, but it's fun, you know, it's innocuous, dumb fun. I like Planet of Women. I think that's a really good song. That's a catchy song, and they should have did a video. That would have been an awesome video. ZZ Top takes the car, which is now flying in space, you know, takes their car, and they fly through space to the Planet of Women, and there's all these sexy ladies there, and then they, you know, ZZ Top has to, like, you know, fight them and then, you know, seduce them. That would have been a really awesome video, and missed opportunity. Just saying. If I could get back in a time machine, and we're going to be talking about time travel in a little while. If I could get back in a time machine, I would go to Texas and convince ZZ Top to make a video for Planet of Women. Yeah, I would waste time travel on that. So, yeah, does that make me a monster? Am I history's monster because I would waste time travel to get a Planet of Women video out of ZZ Top? Maybe. Let me know in the comment sections if I'm a monster or not. But anyway, yeah, not a great album. Maybe not even a good album, but I kind of like it. It's fun. So, you know, I ain't kicking it out of bed. Although it's definitely, they definitely have 13 other albums better than this one. So, moving on to number 13, Antenna. Yeah, Antenna, an album that I'm sure 99% of you have never listened to. This one came out, when did this come out? 1994. Okay, decent album. Again, like the last one, I don't dislike it. In fact, I kind of think the last one might have better songs. But overall, I mean, this has it has loud guitars. It's kind of like Recycler, which we didn't get to yet. Like Recycler, but the guitars are a little louder. After like being very poppy in the mid and late 80s, they kind of crank up the guitars here, which is a good thing. It's one step in the right direction. However, the drums, they kicked up the danciness of the drums. The drums are like these techno dancey drums, and if anything, they're dancier sounding than they were in Recycler. So that's like a step. I think that's almost like 2 steps back to like Afterburner type shit. So you got these like rock and guitar riffs, but yet the dance beats all sound like it's some like early 90s like dance party. Like that was that period, like rave music from Manchester and stuff, and everything was things were either grungy or kind of techno-y, you know what I mean? And it felt like this is a little bit of a mixture of the two, and I don't like the drum sound on this album. The songs, they're decent enough, but they're not great. But I like them. You know, like I said, I don't dislike this album. I do like the guitar tone. PCH is a good song. It's got kind of an AC/DC-ish quality. It's interesting because sometimes AC/DC with songs like Back in Business and Stiff Upper Lip, I said that they have a ZZ Top-ish quality. Well, that's a two-way street, you know? AC/DC can sometimes sound like ZZ Top, but sometimes ZZ Top sounds a little bit like AC/DC. So I'd say that there's an AC/DC-ish quality to some of these songs. But if AC/DC had like lame 90s electronica type drum beats behind them, which obviously that would not be a good thing. So that takes the album down a bit, but not horrible. It's all right. 1 step in the right direction, 2 steps back in the wrong direction, in my opinion. Now we're getting to an album I was just referencing. Number 12, Recycler. Recycler is number 12. I like this album, and obviously I like it better than the last two. After Afterburner, this was definitely a step in the right direction, and I would say most people, this would be a more satisfying follow-up to Eliminator. If this was the follow-up to Eliminator back in the mid-80s, I think this album would have been more successful. It wouldn't have done what Eliminator did, but I think it would have done better than Afterburner. It's still this popular 80s ZZ Top going on, but they're leaning into the blues rock a little more again. So they're bringing in the blues rock element, and the drums sound a little more natural, at least more natural than they do on the 2 albums before it and the 1 album after it. It actually sounds like Frank Beard's playing on this one and not a drum machine. It's good. It's pretty much the whole album. I like it. I would say it's a really good album. Not great, but really good. And if you want to hear like a post-Eliminator era ZZ Top album that's a little like Eliminator, but has a lot of cool deep tracks you're not used to, then I would recommend this one. Concrete and Steel, that's a great song. And so unique. This is the thing, I don't think ZZ Top gets enough credit for being such a unique band. And they were even doing a lot of unique shit in the 70s. But in the 80s, you know, and I'm going to talk a little more about this when we get to Eliminator, but this whole kind of creation of a new futuristic kind of slick modern blues rock pop is like, you know, not a lot of other bands. The closest thing I would say to is maybe Dire Straits a little bit in the mid 80s, you know, Brothers in Arms period, which I dig that too. I love Dire Straits. It's a very unique kind of form of a new kind of modern blues. And I think it works. Some people, they think it's too slick and it doesn't work for them. But I like this mixture of technology and rock music and soul. But Concrete and Steel, badass song. Love that. And then Love Thing, almost like an R&B song, you know, but a rock and R&B song. And that's the thing, ZZ Top, like the Rolling Stones, at heart are almost just as much of a soul band as they are a blues band. You know, they're a rhythm and blues band. They can get funky and they can get soulful. And Love Thing's got that groove. 2000 Blues, great kind of moody blues number. Love that. And of course, the last track, which is the track most people would know, which was featured in the movie Back to the Future Part 3, Double Back. I love Double Back. One of my favorite ZZ Top songs. Yeah, it's actually like in my top 5. I love Double Back. Very rockin', very AC/DC-ish. And, you know, I love when shit's AC/DC-ish. And this song's just badass, man. It's catchy as hell. And, you know, Back to the Future 3 is great film. In fact, I think Back to the Future is the most consistent trilogy ever made. Yeah, I said that. Back to the Future 3 is better than Return of the Jedi, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of the Back to the Future movies. And it doesn't even bother me that Bob Gale, a very talented screenwriter, decided to change the whole method of time travel and embrace the many worlds theories and quantum mechanics in between Back to the Future 1 and 2. That doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. I'll accept this plot hole because it led to two very cool movies. I like Back to the Future 2 and 3. It's a great trilogy. And how cool is it that ZZ Top show up in Back to the Future 3 and they bring this awesome song, Double Back. Love it. And it's a great way to end this album. And hey, it's a good album. I digs it. So then we get to number 11. Number 11. This is the album that I probably had the most complicated relationship with. When I first heard it, I didn't like it, but it grew on me. It's a grower. It still has an aspect to it that holds it back a bit, keeps it from entering the top 10, but I really like this album a lot now. And that's number 11. It's from 1981. El Loco. El Loco. I said that right. As you would guess from an album called El Loco, and look at that album cover, I would say this is their weirdest album. Their most experimental and weirdest. It's essentially the new wave ZZ Top album. The thing that holds it back, and it's the thing that took me a while to get into this, is the production. This is easily my least favorite production on a ZZ Top album. However, I really love all the songs on it. In fact, if this album had a different production, I would have put this ahead of at least the two albums that are above it. Would it probably be like number 8 if it had a different production. The problem with the production though is it's because they were going for this new wave thing. They kind of produce it like a B-52s album. Like the guitars all had this kind of very light, kind of wispy B-52s sound, kind of surfy guitar sounding. And, that works for the B-52s. I really like the first 3 B-52s albums, especially the first 2. But that's all wrong for ZZ Top. ZZ Top needs to have a fuller sound. They just need to have a fuller sound. Everything just sounds too thin and too new wavy. Just not right for ZZ Top. Not enough bass, not full enough, not powerful enough. I don't like the production. That being said, all the songs are very inventive and entertaining and a lot of fun, and there's great hooks. You got Tube Snake Boogie. That's a really cool song. This is where they're kind of also they did this a little bit on the album prior to this, but you could see that they're getting even more into this idea of kind of bringing in blues rock into the 80s in a kind of fresh new way that's a little more modern, a little more postmodern, too, and absurdist at times. And Tube Snake Boogie's like that. I Want to Drive You Home. That's a great jivey kind of strutting down the street rock song. Don't Tease Me's great. Great bluesy rocker. Love that. Pearl Necklace is great. Another kind of almost B-52-ish sounding new wavy song, but it sounds great. Again, like I think if they had a production that was more like the album prior, this album I would love. Groovy Little Hippie Pad. That's a weird experimental song. Heaven or Hell or Houston, another experimental song where they have an almost kind of funkadelic, Zappa-esque quality, which they have from time to time, especially in their 70s and early 80s stuff. And this whole album's really good. I like it a lot, I just wish it had a different production, but it's a really good album. If you like early 80s new wave and you like blues rock, well, this is the album that mixes the two together. It's El Loco. Okay, now we're getting into the top 10. And now we're finally getting into the 70s with number 10, Rio Grande Mud. Rio Grande Mud. My least favorite album of the 70s. But hey, I like it a lot. This was a tough one because this and my number 9, as you'll see, they're very similar albums. But I felt like the songs were a little stronger on the other one, which is why this became my least favorite of the 70s. But least favorite from the 70s, there's no shame in that because the 70s ZZ Top's awesome. There's a little touch of the sophomore slump on this album. The songs aren't as strong as on the first one. I mean, it's not as much of a drop-off as the Afterburner Eliminator drop-off, but there's a little touch of a drop-off after the first album. But they move kind of things into a slightly funkier, more concentrated direction too. So that's kind of a step in what will become the really big leap, which is obviously the third album, which everyone knows that. That's really, in my opinion, where ZZ Top really became ZZ Top. The first two albums were more or less solid Southern rock albums with great guitar playing. That's what they are. Nothing wrong with that. But they don't really take things to the next level until the third album, in my opinion. But this is it. It's a solid Southern rock album with a funky R&B quality to it. The first song, Francine, which sounds very Brown Sugarish, actually, which is interesting because they have a song called Brown Sugar on their first album, which I'll talk about when we get to the first album. But that Brown Sugar doesn't sound like the Stones' Brown Sugar as much as this song. So it's almost like, I don't know, the Stones' Brown Sugar came, and they came out like the same year, but I think ZZ Top's might have beat them to it by a couple months. Maybe they were kind of fucking with the Stones a little bit by doing this song. Like, we know that you did a song called Brown Sugar after we did a song called Brown Sugar, so we'll do a song that sounds kind of like Brown Sugar now, but called Francine. I don't know, just a theory of mine, because it sounds a lot like Brown Sugar. But it's a good song. It's catchy. Cocoa Blue, that's a really cool song. I dig that song a lot. Then there's a good instrumental, Apologies to Pearly, which I really like. Great guitar playing. Barbecue, always great guitar playing. It's Billy Gibbons. He's amazing. God damn it. Sure Got Cold After the Rain Fell. That's a great kind of soulful ballad. Love that song. And it's a really good album. It's a really good album. Solid, straight up, funky Southern rock. And let's just keep this party going. And yes, now we get to number 9, which is ZZ Top's first album. That's actually the name of the album, ZZ Top's first album. And a lot of what I just said about the last album apply to this. After thinking about it, because these albums are so similar, I gave this album the edge because for the most part, I think the songs are a little bit better, a little bit stronger. I think the songs are a little bit stronger, but only a little bit. It's more or less, if you like one of these albums, you'll like the other one. You know, it's kind of like AC/DC's like High Voltage and Dirty Deeds and Dirt Cheap. They're like part 1, part 2. If you like one, you'll like the other. I give this one a slight edge, mainly because of the song Brown Sugar. That's one of my favorite early ZZ Top songs. And like I said, despite the title, it's very different from the Stones' Brown Sugar. They're both like bluesy, rootsy rock songs in that sense. But this song kind of starts off kind of slow, and then it builds, and then it's got that riff. Oh man, that riff is just so down and dirty. I love it. Down and dirty and mean and sexy riff. One of Billy's greatest riffs. But the first song's great too. Somebody Else Been Shaking Your Tree. Love the fucking guitar melodies and the groove. Old Man's a great deep track. Soulful kind of slow southern rock song. Neighbor Neighbor. Bedroom Thing. Backdoor Love Affair. Really good album. You know, like I said, I don't think ZZ Top fully becomes ZZ Top until the third album. But these first 2 albums, they're solid early 70s southern rock with a lot of soul and style and flair, amazing guitar work, great vocals. And like I said, if you like 70s southern rock, there's no reason not to own these 2 albums. So there you go. So now we get to number 8. Now this is where we're entering the period that I think is their most underrated period. There's a period from the late 90s into the mid 2000s where they did 3 albums that I really loved. And 3 albums in a row. It was great. It was kind of like a new peak of ZZ Top. No one knows about it. I know very few people that talk about these albums or give a shit about these albums or praise these albums. And I think people are really missing out. I think ZZ Top, this was, I would say, for consistency's sake, this was their best period after the 70s. I wish more people listened to these 3 albums because they're really good. This one, at number 8, is my least favorite of the 3, and I'll explain why, but it's a really, really, really good album, and I really like it too. From 2003, Mescalero. Really good album. It's cool. I love that title track. Kicks in. This period that I'm talking about now, the thing is everything's sludgy, real sludgy guitar tone from Billy Gibbons. It's really heavy sounding too. Especially the second song, Two Ways to Play. Woo! One of my favorite ZZ Top songs. Now this is straight up heavy metal. This is just heavy metal with a southern attitude. Texas counts as the South, right? I hope it does. Or else I sound like a damn fool. Heavy. Man, heavy. And just, I love that guitar tone. Billy's guitar tones throughout this whole album is just so badass and crunchy and mean. Awesome song. Alligator, that's a cool song. Buck Naked, that's from Seinfeld, George's poor name. I like Peace. Peace is a really good song. Nice and heavy. Great vocals. The only thing I say about this album, it's a little overlong. It's 16 tracks. 16 tracks, and the 2 albums before, they're just tighter, less songs, and I feel they make a more impact. This one, towards the end, starts to lose a little steam. It's nothing bad on it, but I feel like this would have been better if it was like a 12 or 13 song album. I would have cut a couple songs towards the end, and it just would have been a tighter, more focused album with a little more impact. I think it loses a little steam towards the end. Still, hey, nothing's bad on it, and I love it, and it's just got a lot of personality, you know. And this is the thing. This is the side, like I said, that Rick Rubin I felt kind of stamped out a bit and streamlined. There's a quirkiness to ZZ Top, you know, a lot of humor and little experimental bits here and there. And this period, they do a really great job. Whereas Antenna, I felt like the electro drums were too overpowering and restrictive. With these three albums that I'm talking about now, there are elements of electronica and techno and hip hop even kind of thrown in, but it's more subtle. It's more subtle the way it kind of blends in with the music and more organic sounding. Kind of like what they were doing in the very early 80s, where, you know, they were experimenting with new sounds and stuff, but still sounded like, at heart, a blues R&B band. I think if you're a fan of Southern rock, or you're a fan of bluesy rock, or if you're just a fan of hard rock and heavy metal, this period is definitely a period you should be checking out, especially the next two albums. Let's get to them. Number 7, from 1999. XXX, triple X. And that means this is some sexy shit. Yeah, man, and gritty and dirty. It's dirty. It's a dirty album. I love it. That's how I like my albums. Nice and dirty. Very underrated. Very underrated. First half is studio tracks. Second half is live tracks. And it's all great. The first half, I love Hope Chop Sandwich. That's great. This tone, man, this tone. Billy has this awesome tone on these three albums I'm talking about now. It's just so badass. If you hear it, you'll hear what I'm saying immediately. And if you like the tone, that's the thing with this period, this like late 90s, early 2000s kind of period. If you like Billy's tone on the guitar, you're going to like all these songs because they all got it on it. And I'm a big guitar tone guy. If I hear a guitar tone I like, man, you got me. It sinks in. Something about it just moves me. And all these songs have it. My favorite song on the album is the 5th track, Made Into a Movie. God damn, is that a great song. That's one of my favorite ZZ Top songs. It's grungy and dark and sexy all at the same time. I love it. And it's just like people think ZZ Top like stopped making great music in the 70s. Man, listen to this shit. Listen to Made Into a Movie. That song's badass. Love that song. Even when they experiment and do some stuff like Trippin' and Dreadbon Boogaloo, they're just like a flare of weirdness kind of thrown in. And, you know, that's the thing that makes ZZ Top ZZ Top. They'll throw a few gonzo weirdo curveballs at you, and it's balanced really well to the more straight up hard rock songs throughout this album. And then all the live tracks are really great. They're really great. Hey Mr. Millionaire, Sin Pusher, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear, Belt Buckle. All great, straight up Southern rock tunes with a funky kind of modern edge to it. Triple X, it's a great album. Yeah, now we're into great albums. Great album. I love it. More people should listen to it. But you know what's even better? Is number 6 from 1996. Rhythm Mean, which is a word that ZZ Top made up. It's not a real word, but you know what? It's a real fucking album. Listen to it because it's great. I love Rhythm Mean. This is the album that really launched this period, this great run. 3 great albums in a row. And this album, I think, is the best of the 3. Although XXX comes close. But this album, man, and you hear it right out of the gate with Rhythm Mean, the title track. Man, I love that guitar tone. That's where he introduces this new, really ultra badass guitar tone. I don't want to be a broken record. But when you keep just laying down awesome guitar tones again and again and again, I'm going to be a goddamn broken record. Love it. Love it. Love it. Great song. It's a perfect mesh of effects and groove and soul. It's exactly the way I think blues rock should sound like as it was heading to a new century. Pretty much, again, if you like the guitar tone, you'll like the rest of the album because every goddamn song has this guitar tone. Bang Bang, Black Fly, Vincent Price Blues. Ooh, that's a cool song. Dig that. Again, I love the lyrics, all this absurdist postmodern humor that ZZ Top throws in. Zipper Job's great. Hairdresser, that's good, sexy rocker. She's Just Killing Me, my favorite song on the album. You might know it. It was used in the Dusk to Dawn soundtrack, which is also a great movie. Very sexy, cool vampire film by Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. Awesome movie. And She's Just Killing Me is an awesome song. Badass and heavy, man. This is where ZZ Top crosses over to heavy metal, which they do sometimes. This song's badass, just tough sounding, strutting into a bar music. I love it. Loaded. Great song, great vocals. Man, Dusty can veer, like I said, from very heavy vocals to more like soulful vocals here, where he just sounds like a blues man and tough. I love it. Yeah, the whole album's great. A nice 12 songs, nice and tight. This is exactly the kind of shit I would want ZZ Top to be making in the 90s. And I feel bad that I was not listening to it back in the 90s to support it, because they were doing great shit. Great creative comeback album, in my opinion. And now we're going to enter the top 5. There's an album you might know, especially if you're a kid growing up in the 80s. Yeah, it's this one. Number 5, Eliminator. Eliminator. For an album that's so popular and made so much money and is their biggest album, I'm surprised how little love this album gets these days. Maybe it's just because I hang out with a bunch of headbangers, a bunch of snobbish headbangers that think this is all this fucking MTV fucking teeny bopper crap. Let me tell you something. As far as MTV teeny bopper crap goes, this is fucking choice material, all right, man? This is my case for Eliminator. Yes, ideally, I like, as you'll see from my top 4, I like 70s ZZ Top best. But they kept changing. They were that kind of band. They were an experimental band that kept changing and moving with the times. And Eliminator is really, it's a truly innovative album that takes blues rock and southern rock and mixes in kind of 80s dance pop in a way that I find works. Yeah, I would prefer if the drums were maybe a little more organic sounding, at least kind of like how they sound on Recycler. At this point, with the top 5, I'm just going to say, I love these albums so much, I had to nitpick to decide the ranking. The only thing that keeps this from being number 5 and not the top 4 is, yeah, it'd be better if the drums sounded a little more organic and less like a drum machine. But that's it. All the songs are killer. Great songs. Yes, they're like tight, simple pop rock songs, but unlike Afterburner, where I felt it was like hit or miss, one good song, one not so good song, one good song, not so good song, every song here is good. Every song here is melodic, catchy, hook-driven. They all sink in your head. Even the songs that weren't singles could have been singles. The whole album's catchy as hell. It's like one of these great mid-80s albums where it's like just a perfect pop album, a perfect fusion of pop and whatever the other genre is. Like Michael Jackson's Thriller, it's R&B meets pop, and every song was like perfect. Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, it's like rootsy, working class rock meets pop music, and every song was like perfect. Def Leppard, Pyromania, it's heavy metal meets pop music, and every song is perfect. Eliminator's like that kind of album. It's one of these, in my opinion, flawless fusions of a certain genre of music mixed with pop, with a lot of personality. Just like those other albums I mentioned, even though they were very catchy and accessible, they had a lot of the artist's personality throughout. Likewise, this does not sound like anything but ZZ Top. It's just new for the 80s Robo ZZ Top, but it's uniquely ZZ Top. It's got that groove, man, and the songs. And, as many times as I've heard Give Me All Your Lovin' and Sharp Dressed Man and Legs, especially the album version of Legs, which is better than the single version, in my opinion. The guitars are louder, less keyboards. I never get burned out. They're just catchy goddamn songs, It's like the stuff on Back in Black, another perfect album. Every song's just really catchy, but I love Got Me Under Pressure. I Need You Tonight. Woo! That's a sexy song. Strutting kind of sexy, bluesy rock ballad. Love it. Thug's great. Dirty Dog. Love that song. Bad Girl. Man. And Dusty's vocals, man, on Bad Girls, like I said, that's like Brian Johnson type shit. He's belting his fucking balls off. He sounds amazing on it. Such a badass tune, man. I love this album. It manages to be both heavy and poppy at the same time. Man, it's party time. Every time I put on Eliminator, it's a goddamn party. Rock and roll. And I love Eliminator. All right, number 4. Fandango from 1975. Awesome album. I love it. It's great. Yeah, pretty much this is where ZZ Top in the mid-70s could do no wrong, man. This is a great album. One of the great 70s Southern rock albums. And the only reason I put the 3 70s ZZ Top albums ahead of it is, again, like I had a nitpick here because they're pretty close in quality. Not even about songs per se, it's just the sequencing. I would have preferred it. I think it should be like the way they did it on XXX. The studio track should be the first side, and the second side should be the live tracks, especially in this case because the third song on the live side is Backdoor Medley, which is this long kind of jammy song, medley of Backdoor Love Affair, and it gets very jammy. And it's just like, I don't like a long jammy song right in the middle of an album. I feel like that's a good way to end an album, but I just don't think it should be in the middle. And that's because of the sequencing. This is kind of right in the middle. And then there's all these catchy, punchy, awesome studio tracks that I want to get to. So I would have preferred it if they flipped it and the studio tracks were first, and then the second side was the live stuff, and it ended with Backdoor Medley. That would have worked better in my opinion. But either way, I ain't kicking this out bad. Just because I don't get to the studio tracks fast enough for my liking. I still love this album, but the studio tracks are the best part, and that's the thing. Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings, woo! One of the best ZZ Top songs. Hard rockin', heavy, soulful, and funky all at the same time. And I love it. I love it when things are rocking and funky at the same time. And ZZ Top, man, they do it. I mean, it's just in the title, and it sounds like it. It sounds like Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings. I love it. Blue Jeans Blues, great bluesy song with that ZZ Top flair. Love it. Mexican Blackbird, great song. Heard It on the X. That's my favorite song on the album, man. Heard It on the X. Kind of like Nasty Dogs, man. It's funky and rockin'. Kind of fast, upbeat, rockin', funky song. Oh, man. Love it. And so uniquely ZZ Top. Just, Billy's guitar work, amazing. Amazing. And then the big hit from the album, I would say probably their biggest hit from the 70s, Tush. Woo! And there you go. You got Dusty singing lead on their biggest hit from the 70s, Tush. I'm sure you've heard this song. This song is just killer classic 70s Southern rock. Doesn't get grittier and meaner sounding and sexier than this song. Never get tired of Tush. I love it. I love this whole album. Again, I just wish they flipped it and the studio tracks were first and then the live tracks. But that's my only minor complaint. Everything about this album's great. Fandango, you need to own it. Okay, so then we're going to get to my third favorite ZZ Top album that not a lot of people talk about. It's an underrated album, but I have noticed that it has a little bit of a cult following amongst hardcore ZZ Top fans. And maybe you're one of them. So let's go into number 3 with, wait, there's a garbage truck making a racket. Let's wait. Let's wait. Let's wait. Garbage truck is left. Let's get back into this. Number 3, 1976, Tejas. I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Am I pronounce it? I mean, it's just Texas, right? It's the Caddo language, which is Native American. That was where the word Texas originally, or Tejas. I don't know how I should pronounce that. Tell me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I know this was the origins of the word Texas, and it comes from apparently the Caddo language from the Caddo Nation of Native Americans, and that is where that title comes from. So it's like Texas, but with a J-A-S, Tejas, or Tejas, or Texas. You tell me how I should be saying that, because it's one of my favorite albums, and I don't even know how I'm saying it. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but it doesn't mean I don't love the album. It's number 3. The ultimate desert album. It's just really deserty, just like the album cover. Just like that album cover there, and it sounds like it, man. Starts off a very Stonesy, just kind of straight up catchy, bluesy rock song, It's Only Love, very Stonesy, and I love it. I love the Stones. My favorite song on the album is the next song, Arrested for Driving While Blind. Arrested while driving while blind, man. Hey, not saying you should be drinking and driving, you shouldn't. But, man, this is a great song, man. It's just funky and dirty and a song that only ZZ Top could do, soulful. And, oh, man, I dig it. I dig this song so much. The groove. And like I said, kind of like the Stones, at heart, I feel like there's a lot of R&B influence with ZZ Top. It's not just the blues, it's also soul and funk, and this is throughout the whole album. You hear a lot of that soul side, and you hear it here. El Diablo, man, that's a badass tune. I love it. Funky, great. Everything's great. I love this whole album. And it has this great instrumental at the end, Asleep in the Gibbons Desert. Nice atmospheric, kind of trippy desert instrumental. This whole album's great. I love every song on it. And if you like kind of trippy, desert, southern rock with a funky gonzo edge, well, this might be an album that appeals to you. And I love it. Definitely, I think probably their most underrated album from the 70s, and more people should listen to it. All right, it's exciting. We're getting to the top 2. Number 2. From 1979, their last album from the 70s. And it's in a lot of ways a transition album, which I'll get into. But 1979's, and I hope I don't murder this, Diguelo. Did I say that right? I don't know. And man, is this album awesome. Yeah, look at that album cover. That's the greatest ZZ Top album cover ever. Badass. And this album, oh man, this is an unsung masterpiece in my opinion. In a lot of ways, this is the definitive ZZ Top album because this is really a transition album. This is the album that really bridges the 70s into the 80s. And this was after they took this long break. After the last album, they took a couple years break, and that's where they grew their beards. So this is actually the first album that has the iconic 80s ZZ Top beards. They grew the beards, and this is where they kind of bring in, like, even though it's primarily southern rock and, you know, blues and soul, they bring in a little bit of an experimental edge that sets up kind of their 80s stuff. And it's a little tighter and a little punchier. For an album as experimental as this and innovative, it starts off with just like the simplest thing they could have done, which is just an old soul cover. But it's an amazing old soul cover from one of my favorite soul songs, written by Isaac Hayes, actually, but performed by Sam and Dave. Sam and Dave, who I love. I'm a huge Sam and Dave fan. I thank you. I think I like the ZZ Top version even more than the Sam and Dave version, and that's saying a lot. So it's a very confident way to open up this album. Just open up with this great soul cover, and then it just keeps getting more and more interesting and more funky. And it's like, it's a trip, man. She Loves My Automobile. Great, you know, southern rock song. I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. Man, one of the greatest ZZ Top songs. I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. And this is a song, like I said, that this is like a song that bridges in the 70s and the 80s vibe, you know? It's punchy, it's rocking, it's catchy, it's fun. It's everything I love about music is in I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide. It's fucking rock and roll with attitude and humor, and I love it. A Fool for Your Stockings. Ooh, sexy song. A little like I Need You Tonight on Eliminator. It's a sexy song, man. I love it. Sexy bluesy song. Manic Mechanic. Man, crazy. This is like that weirder stuff that you would hear on El Loco. Very experimental. A little Zappa-esque. I dig it. Cheap Sunglasses, man. Great experimental gonzo ZZ Top song, which again kind of bridges them into the 80s a bit. It's got that vibe, you know, it's almost creating this cartoon-like caricature of ZZ Top, like not just the beards, but the sunglasses, you know, it's all part of that image, and they're starting to kind of form that a little bit here, but in a very organic way. And this whole album's great, man. It's got everything. It's got great soul covers, hard rock and southern rock and blues, soulful, sexy ballads, experimental gonzo songs. It's everything that I love about ZZ Top. So I think it's like a perfect album that kind of is ZZ Top's definitive album. It's the Rosetta Stone between Tres Hombres and Eliminator. And everyone should own this goddamn album. Go out. Get it now. Get it now. Get it now, man. Now let's get to, yeah, okay, this is not the most original number one if we're talking about ZZ Top. This is the album that most people say is the greatest ZZ Top album. And you know what? I'm not a guy that's going to be counterculture for the sake to be counterculture. Because in this regard, most people is right. This is the best album. However, I tell you, the last one does give it a run for its money. So it's not like this is so much better than the other album. They're damn close. They're damn close. But, you know, ultimately, yeah, I had to go. I had to go with 1973's Tres Hombres. Bon Scott was a fan of this album. A lot of people are. This guy, too. Lemmy. There he is. Say hi to Lemmy. Lemmy loved it. He even covered a song from it, and it happens to be my favorite song on the album. Man, Yeah, it's a song you heard at the beginning, unless I had a copyright issue. Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers. It's awesome. And as much as I love that Motorhead cover, the original's better, man. That ZZ Top version, the original ZZ Top version of Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, woo! Man, is that some righteous hard rock and southern rock, man, with a bit of a heavy metal edge. That's why Motorhead could cover it. Like, and this is the album where ZZ Top really becomes ZZ Top, and it's because of songs like this. Because this is where it's more than just the blues and the southern rock and the soul influence. They're bringing in a metallic edge here. This is where you get a little bit of heavy metal mixed into ZZ Top. And to me, that was like the last piece of the puzzle. That's the last little element they needed to really kind of solidify and get their own sound. A thing that distinguished them from the other southern rock and rootsier bands out there. And by bringing in this kind of sonic edge, it added just more power to their music, and it made it punchier and made it more distinctive. So this is the album where they really get it together and really become ZZ Top, in my opinion. And every song is perfect. It's a perfect album. Waiting for the Bus, great opener. I love how it goes right into Jesus Just Left Chicago. Great, soulful, bluesy song. Love the chords. I love the guitar tone throughout this album. It's one of those great guitar tone albums, man. If you dig the guitar tone, you'll dig the whole album. Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, like I said, my favorite song in the album. And yeah, my favorite ZZ Top song. So there you go. But my second favorite's also on this album as well. This is why it's number one, because I love so many songs on it, man. Master of Sparks, it's an awesome song. Starts bringing in a little bit of that more gonzo experimental side as well, along with the metal element brought in. The gonzo elements brought in as well a little bit on this album. Hot Blue and Righteous is great. Move Me On Down the Line, that sounds almost kind of like a Exile on Main Street kind of Stone song. I love it. Nothing wrong with that. Precious and Grace. Woo! My second favorite song on the album. Precious and Grace. Badass tune, man. Another song brings in this kind of, I would say, a bit of a heavy metal quality, man. And just that riff, it's just mean sounding. And the guitar work, some of Billy's greatest guitar soloing. Oh man, what a great goddamn song. It's so unique and very modern sounding for 1973, in my opinion. Great song. Of course, there's the big hit on the album, Lagrange, which is essentially them doing John Lee Hooker's Boom Boom, one of my favorite all-time blues songs, John Lee Hooker's Boom Boom. I would put that actually Boom Boom ahead of this, but this is still great, man. Still a great song, badass riff. Never get tired of this song. It deserves to be a classic. Chic, another great song. Great mixes in all that stuff again. Like I said, ZZ Top, they get their own sound here. Have You Heard? Great way to end the album. I love this whole album, man. It's Tres Hombres, man. It's one of the greatest rock albums from the 70s, man. So what are you doing not owning Tres Hombres? But I have a feeling you probably do if you're watching this video. I would think. But if not, yeah, get that. That's the first ZZ Top album you should get. And then get all the others, in order of how I rank them. So, get this, then number 2, then my number 3, then my number 4, and eventually you'll get to Afterburner and La Futura, You'll get to them eventually. But there's no rush. But take your time. Definitely get the albums in my top 10. Yeah, come on. It's only 10 albums. What are you doing? Come on. Respect Dusty Hill. Buy those 10 albums. Come on. Don't just stream them. Don't cheat. Don't cheat. Buy that shit. Buy that shit. Support awesome music. And you never know, man. You gotta support physical media. And not saying even buy CDs. You can just download it from like the Apple Store. Because that's still at least going on to your hard drive. So you actually got it. On a streaming service, you can't guarantee that it'll be there forever. You don't own the music that you stream. You think you do. You save it on your little albums library and Spotify, but it's an illusion. You don't own it. At any moment, if they lost a copyright or for some reason someone was offended by that album, they could always just take it away. And suddenly, you don't have this cool album in your music library. And that's why it's important to buy shit. Owning the shit so you actually have it. Otherwise, you're just borrowing it. Alright? So buy some ZZ Top albums. And that's all I gotta say. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you found it entertaining and educational. And hopefully you go out and buy some ZZ Top albums. They're a great band and more consistent than their reputation, in my opinion. I love me some ZZ Top. And as you know, I love me some rock and roll. So I'm gonna keep on rocking. I'm gonna keep on rolling. And over and out.